Welcome to Mug to Mug with Erin. I'm Erin. This is my mug. This is my other mug, and I'm glad your mug is here today too. The mug of the day is this fabulous mug that we got at the Mississippi Aquarium. Actually, it was a gift to me from Maggie, my daughter, and one is Anderson's, my son's best friend, which means he's practically mine too. So his name is Jacob. Thank you, Jacob. And I got so tickled because he said he's held the mug in the gift shop and he practiced my tagline to make sure that it would, I could hold it and it would be a good mug for Mug to Mug with Erin. So thank you, Jacob. I love it. I love my mug. So anyway, there's the mug. So how are y'all doing? This is the week of Thanksgiving. So in honor of this week, I have a turkey story. I have a turkey story entitled, The Day I Made Eye Contact with a Turkey. It was a peaceful day. Maggie and I were driving to an orthodontist appointment and in the country setting. It was beautiful. And I noticed a big bird fly across the road ahead of me. And I started thinking, that was a really big bird. It looked like a turkey, but do turkeys fly? Because it flew across the road. And don't turkeys travel in packs? And about that time, I turned and looked out of my window, and there was this turkey coming at me. Like I made eye contact with him. He was coming at me, and apparently oh my goodness, a turkey's about to hit my car scream is very distinctive, because Maggie made fun of me and practiced that scream the entire rest of that day. So it was a day I will never forget, the day I made eye contact with a turkey. So thank you for enjoying my story. But today I really want to talk about 2 tips, 2 ways to survive the holidays, because they are here. The holidays are here and all of its fun, chaos, and craziness. So here they are. To set it up, I'm going to talk about Hallmark Christmas movies. So I asked a group of ladies the other night, what are 3 things that are the same about all Hallmark Christmas movies? And I would ask you the same thing if I could hear your answers. But they said there's usually the same cast, the same people in them. They, what was the second one? The same plot. And the third one was, of course, the happy ending. And so if they're so predictable, why do we love them so much? And we love them so much that people make fun of them. The Holderness Family has a hilarious spoof on the Hallmark movies. And that's really funny. You should check it out if you want to laugh. So why do we love it so much? And I think that it's because deep down, we want the Christmas Hallmark movie. We want all the unresolved things in our lives to be tied up and resolved by the stroke of midnight on Christmas Eve in this huge, glorious bow, right? There are things in our lives that we want to be resolved. We want the addicts in our lives to be healed. We want conflicts to be resolved. We want blank to happen. We all have a blank to fill in. We want this to happen. And that feeling, that thing we want to happen, I'm going to call it a longing. We all have a longing. And it seems like at Christmas, the things that we long for kind of intensifies. And I think deep down, it's a longing for all things to be right. We just want things to be the way they should be. And unfortunately, because we live in a broken world, most of the things that we long for will not be made right on this side of heaven. And that is part of living in a broken world. So during the holidays, we want brokenness to take a break, right? But our brokenness follows us right into the holidays like an unwanted guest. So my first tip for surviving the holidays is going to be, don't be surprised by the brokenness. Our world is broken 365 days a year. So don't be surprised by it. Acknowledge it. acknowledge the brokenness. It's not going to take a day off for the holidays. And even though we wanted to take a day off, it doesn't. Dr. Dan Allender says, Jesus did not come to cover up the darkness, but he came to illuminate a path right through it. He is the light of the world. And so what we can do is know that Jesus is right there in the brokenness with us. He lived in this world. He came and lived in this broken world so that he would know what it was like, what the heaviness and dealing with the brokenness would be like. He has felt every emotion that you and I have felt or will ever feel. He knows, he understands that longing. He understands the pull of sin. Although he never gave into it, he knows the pull. So he can offer us compassion, but he also offers us a way out. He offers us the answer to that pull, which is to take his hand. So we can acknowledge the brokenness, but we can also acknowledge that Jesus is right there with us in our brokenness. Also, if it wasn't for the brokenness, we wouldn't have Christmas. If the world had not been broken by sin, we wouldn't have needed Jesus to come. We wouldn't have needed him to come fix things. But we do need him. Oh my goodness. We needed the sweet baby in the manger to become the suffering Savior on the cross and the victorious Savior who conquered sin and death and the pull they have on us. And because he came and died on the cross and rose again, that means that the brokenness in our lives will not have the final say. The brokenness will not have the final word. I just want to encourage you with that today. We have to acknowledge the brokenness, but we also have the truth that they won't have the final say. I'm going to show you something. Here you go. So my husband made this manger and cross. But I want you to look at it and go, the manger is empty and so is the cross, because Jesus rose and conquered sin and death. So I'm going to say it again. The brokenness will not have the final say. I want you to remember that if you don't remember anything else today. So we have this brokenness. Is there anything we can do? And there is. And that's the second tip on surviving the holidays, is we can seek to be satisfied by God. And I love that word satisfied. I want you to remember the word satisfied. And in Hebrew, it means to fill up. The picture is like a sponge that has absorbed so much water it can't absorb anymore. The water just kind of sits on top of it. So we want to be filled up, satisfied with the things of God, right? And so there's a verse. Let me find it. So the verse I want to look at is Psalm 107 verse 9, which says, "For he satisfies the longing soul, and the hungry soul he fills with good things." So the word for longing in that verse is the same word for thirsty. So we talked about satisfied. For he satisfies, he fills up the longing soul, the thirsty soul. And he fills the hungry soul with good things. So when we're hungry, our strength is low, and we need to be filled up with good, nourishing food, right? So our soul is the same way. When our soul is so thirsty, it needs to be filled up. When our soul is weak, it needs to be filled up. And God says he will satisfy. He will fill up the thirsty soul. He will fill the hungry soul with good things. And let's think about that for a minute. The word for thirsty. We all have things that we thirst after. That's that longing. Back from the beginning of this talk, we have things that blank. We have things we're thirsty for. And the word in Hebrew used in this verse for thirsty also means to run about or to rush. And you know, when our soul is thirsty for something and we have that longing, we run about and we rush to either fill it up with something to stop that loneliness, to stop that longing, or we rush about to numb that longing. And God says, I have the answer in this verse. He will fill you up. He will fill us up. He will saturate that longing. He will fill us up to where we are, it's filled like in excess of. And I love that word picture. Can you imagine being so filled up with the things of God that you're not having that longing anymore, that you're filled up with the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. And that is what overflows from you onto others. And because you're like a sponge that's so full of water. So so to be satisfied in God is the second tip. So we're going to recap real quick. So we're going to acknowledge the brokenness. It's going to follow us right up into Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas celebrations. But we're going to acknowledge it and not ignore it or be surprised by it. But also we're going to embrace the truth that Jesus is in the brokenness with us, which means that we are not alone. You are never alone. Jesus is with you. And the second point I want you to come away with is to remember that sweet baby in the manger became the suffering Savior on the cross and the risen Savior who conquered sin and death and the hold that it has on us. So that means that the brokenness will not have the final say. And then the third thing is, as we seek to be filled up, to be satisfied in God, we can remember that He will do what He says He will do. Okay, He does what He says He will do. And in Psalm 107 verse 9, it says, He satisfies the longing soul, and the hungry soul He fills with good things. So we can know that He is going to do what He says He's going to do. So if we seek Him and saturate ourselves in His Word, He will fill us up and satisfy us. God offers a love that can fill us up so that the things that we long for don't rule us. He offers a hope that is not bound by the circumstances around us. And He offers a quiet strength that will help guide our steps along His path. So when our soul is satisfied, it changes the way we live. We don't live in desperation. We don't live thinking that we're alone and we've got to take care of things. When our soul is satisfied and we know that Jesus is with us, it makes a difference in the way that we act and react to the things around us. So those are my tips for surviving the holidays. And I hope y'all have a great Thanksgiving holiday, and I will see you next time on Mug to Mug.